Hey guys, it's Erica, and in today's video we're going to be talking about a relatively common houseplant known as the Scindapsus pictus. So there are two different kinds of Scindapsus pictus, and I feel like they can be very easily confused between which one is which, so we're gonna get into the details to help you kind of know which one that you have. So I have both of the cultivars here. This one is the Scindapsus pictus exotica, and this one here is the Scindapsus pictus argyrius. Now, the common names are kind of, what I've found is that they're very interchangeably used, but most commonly the exotica is known as the silver pothos, which it's not a pothos, it's a Scindapsus instead of an epipremnum, but that's beside the point. A common name for this plant is a silver pothos. So that's the exotica, and then what I've commonly seen for the argyrius is a silvery Ann. And like I said, I've seen those names be used very interchangeably, which is why I kind of like to stick to the scientific names. Sellers will kind of use them whichever way. So yeah, that's why I just like to stick to the scientific names. But regardless, here they are. And we're going to get a closer look in how you can kind of tell. I remember when I first started out, I had no idea which one was which, and I kept looking it up, and I just could not for the life of me see the difference. So hopefully this will help you see the difference if you don't already know it. I think it really helps to put two leaves side by side. The exotica usually has a lot larger leaves. You can see these ones aren't even nearly as big as they can get. These leaves can get pretty big, and they have just they have more speckling, more silver speckling than the argyrius. Sometimes the speckling can get so intense. I have a plant here that I'm going to show you. It's almost completely silver. I think these ones are so beautiful. And we're going to get into the reasons why these leaves are curled in just a moment, but you can see that they just look very silvery, and these leaves are a lot larger than those of the argyrius. The argyrius has smaller leaves, of course, and it has less silver speckling, and it has an outlining of silver on the edges. In my opinion, this looks more like a heart-shaped philodendron, like the shape of a leaf of a cordatum philodendron. So that's, as you see them more often, it gets a lot easier to tell, and you can just spot right away like, oh, exotica, oh, argyrius. So it gets a lot easier, but hopefully those telltale signs can kind of help you in knowing which one is which. Hopefully after being able to identify which plant you have, we could get more into the care aspect of these plants. These plants are very easy to care for. They are they're pretty much identical care as a golden pothos or just any pothos. They're very easy to care for. For watering, you water whenever the soil is dry, almost dry. Getting back into why these leaves on this plant are curled. When a Scindapsus pictus is thirsty, its leaves will curl in like this. And you can tell this one's very thirsty because these curls are very dramatic. This one is pretty much like a burrito going on there. It's less stressful for the plant to water it before it gets to this point of being so curly. This is very intensely curled, but you know, if you forget to water it, you forget, and it will let you know that it needs water, which is a really good thing about this plant. I really appreciate plants that can show you when they need to be watered. So, yep. And the same goes for the argyrius. This one will get even more curly because this plant has just been watered, so these leaves are nice and hydrated, and you can see that they're still a little bit curly, and that's because this plant has more curly leaves. It has thinner leaves they're just flimsier than the exotica version of the plant. So there you go. That's how you know they need to be watered. But like I said, I would recommend to water them based on the dryness of their soil rather than letting them get to the point where their leaves are very, curled. If you're afraid of overwatering, you can use a moisture meter to test out if the soil is at, on the lower end of dry, or you can even wait until the leaves get curly, because that's honestly what I do if I'm scared to overwater a plant. I just wait till the plant looks like it needs water. And it doesn't really harm the plant long term because you do end up watering it on time, but it could be growing at a faster pace and just looking a lot healthier most of the time if you do stick to a more regimented water schedule. Next, what we could talk about is the sunlight that these plants need. These plants can live in low light situations, so I know low light houseplants are a very great commodity because a lot of us don't have ample amounts of sunlight coming into our houses. I personally only have a northeast facing window and an east facing window, and it's just the bane of my existence. So this is one of the first houseplants I got before I had grow lights because it was a low light plant. So it definitely survived the days without having that grow light that it's now living under. So it's looking pretty good. A sign of your plant needing more light is growing smaller leaves like this. So you can see these leaves are new and they're significantly smaller than the leaves up top. And that is because for a while I wasn't putting this plant under my grow lights. I just recently put it under there because I saw how these leaves were looking. They're very small and it could be growing a lot bigger leaves, putting it under, more light. So that's why I moved it to a more light. If you're fine with your plant having small leaves, then by all means, let it live there. It's just gonna look a little less full and it's probably gonna look more viney. And if you like that look, then that's perfect. Same goes for the exotica. Same applies for both of the plants whenever I'm speaking on them. They pretty much have the same exact care, so they just look different. So if you were wondering, these plants do grow under grow lights. They do pretty well, but I think they do prefer natural sunlight more. Some plants really love grow lights, and I would rather keep them under grow lights than natural sunlight. But these are ones that I think will flourish more, just do better in general in actual sunlight. But you can keep them under grow lights and they grow pretty well like that. For fertilizing this plant, I like to use fish fertilizer, whatever the back of the bottle says. I just mix that in with water and then feed the plants. In the spring and summertime, I will fertilize them about every week, pretty often because they grow pretty quickly during those times. I like to take them outside so they can get a lot of sunlight because right now they're growing under grow lights, and whenever I can give them actual sunlight, I like to do that for them. I think that just about covers everything, so we can get into the propagation on this plant. I have a couple of propagations here. The thing that I love about vining plants such as Scindapsus pictus is that you can propagate one leaf at a time. So you can have a fuller looking plant with a whole bunch of propagations rather than having just, a long vining plant. So I have here to show you. So these have been propagating in water for, I want to say a month or so. They root pretty quickly. You'll see like a little root come out maybe 1 or 2 weeks into propagation. So I have these two here, and you can see these roots are pretty long. And I have a single leaf cutting, and then I have a 2-leaf cutting here. and both of them rooted and they're doing very well. And I'm gonna pot those today. And then I have another single leaf cutting. Let me get it out. It's kind of with all these other plants. So this one particular one leaf cutting, you can tell has been in water for quite some time since it is already giving off a new leaf. And this is how one leaf cuttings are able to look like actual plants after some time. They'll grow out a new leaf next to the other stem that was cut. So I'm going to show you how to do that here. It's very easy. And since all of these cuttings that I have here are exotica cuttings, I'm going to show you on my Argyrius plants. So you saw this little vine that I have of tiny leaves, and this is going to be the vine that we use for our propagation demonstration today. I have some shears here, and always make sure that before you use any shears on your plant to disinfect it with some alcohol is what I like to use. You just squirt down the blades of your shears and then they're ready to go. So I'm just gonna cut over here and bring it up closer to you. If you're unfamiliar with how to propagate vining plants, I also have a video on it, but you can see there are nodes here and there's some little aerial roots growing off of those nodes. And this is what we want to put in water. Everything in between doesn't really matter. Like you saw on this cutting, this was in between and this part was in between, and you can see that this new growth just came all alongside here and that part's done growing. We're not getting any more leaves out of it, so we don't really, well, that's not really what we're looking for when we're cutting these. So I'm just gonna cut in between these nodes. So I'm gonna cut here, in between a node, here in between the nodes, and here in between the nodes. So now what we have are these little leaves, and there's a lot of extra stem on both sides. So I'm just gonna cut both ends a little bit shorter just to be able to fit into the vial that I'm going to be using a little bit easier. And cutting at an angle, a 45-degree angle, is gonna give you the best results, although it doesn't really make a difference for a plant such as this one, which with such a tiny vine. A 45-degree angle just gives some more surface area to be in contact with the water. So usually when propagating, it's best to cut in a 45-degree angle, no matter what plant you're propagating. So I have my little leaf here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and stick this into water. And for this little vial, you could see both sides are underwater. But if you are not propagating in such a container that both ends will be in water, you want to make sure you remember which end the plant was growing from. So I would want this end to be in water, since this is the tip of the plant where it will grow its leaves from, and this is going to be where it will grow its roots from. So the part closer to the base of the plant is the part that you want to put underwater. And for this vine, I'm just going to place it underwater. You can 100% pull off a leaf like so, and then you'll just have an entirely exposed node that will make it a lot easier to place into a propagation container. But you can also leave the leaf on, and as long as that node is underwater, then you're gonna be golden. Your plant will most likely root. But if you want, you can pull off the leaf, because it definitely makes it so much easier to just stick that empty vine into a container rather than trying to, fill up a container enough so that the node will be underwater, submerged. And then I'm just gonna put in my little plants. And once I pulled this leaf off, this leaf is no longer viable to grow any roots. You need that node, so you're not gonna cheat the system that way. So this is trash. compost. So I have my little cuttings in here ready to grow their roots. And when you have your plant like this, you can put it into a bright window where they're going to get a lot of light, but not any direct sun. I don't know if I mentioned it, but do not put these plants into direct sunlight. Their leaves will burn and it's just going to be really sad. But you do want to give them bright as light as possible so that they can put all the energy from the sun into growing their roots and just becoming their own little plant more quickly for you. There you go. Now we're going to talk about kind of the soil mix. I'm going to pot these cuttings with their really long roots, and I'm just going to have a whole new entire plant by the end of this video. So here is what I'm going to be mixing for my plants. I have a soil mix here and then some perlite. And the perlite is just to make the mixture more airy and so that it will be more well draining. We don't want the roots to sit in soggy soil. I'm just gonna mix this up. This is what my mixture's looking like after being mixed. And depending on whether you are more heavy-handed at watering or you kind of pull back on the watering, you can add more or less perlite. So if you are an overwaterer, you're just very heavy-handed, you can put in some more perlites. I like to put maybe 40% perlite, 60% soil mix. If you're very heavy-handed, you could maybe put 50-50 mix, 50% perlite, 50% soil. And if you are really laid back with watering like I am, you can go for that mixture that I went for, that 40% perlite and then 60% soil. And I think those mixes will be very beneficial for you and your plant's needs. So we're gonna pot these little roots. We're gonna have to move this guy over. He's getting the stage taken from him. Here we go. And I have this size of a pot because these plants aren't very big and I think their roots kind of fill out nicely in the pot. They have very long roots, but they can kind of ravel around each other until they're a bigger plant. And I think it's just gonna look like a really cute plant in here. I'm gonna start off by filling the base with some soil. This is how much soil I added. It's about to here, and you just want that extra cushion of soil so that your plant's roots aren't directly on the pot, the base of the pot coming out of the drainage hole, stuff like that. And I can pot these babies up. And when I'm potting this one up, I want to be careful to make sure that the new leaf coming in is going to be angled to come out of the soil instead of going back down into the soil. So just be aware of how your plant is growing. And I'm just going to cover that up with soil. Okay, so here's my cute little baby starter plants, and when I'm done filming this video, I'm going to run some filtered water through this soil mix, let it get all the air bubbles that may be in there out, and just water my fresh new plant. Alright you guys, that is it for today's video. If you have any questions about anything I may have missed, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, you could give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel for some more plant content like this. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye! Also, let me know if you prefer the Exotica or the Argyrius, because at first when I saw the Exotica, I was like, that's an ugly plant. And then, for some reason, it grew on me and I kind of like it better than the Argyrius now. So Let me know if you have a favorite or if you love them both equally and you're just a really good plant mom. Okay, bye guys.